Hello and welcome to this special presentation. 2020 is about to end, and boy, what a year has this been. The worldwide lockdowns have disturbed, disrupted and reversed economic growth in some cases. In the Indian context, we were in any case struggling with a slowdown, and then came the pandemic. But with the vaccine now likely, things are looking good. The government is excited with the almost V-shaped recovery. While releasing a package of 20 lakh crores, Prime Minister Modi announced his vision of Atmanirbhar or self-reliant India. The Modi government thought that this was the best time to make some big bang reforms. In this context, we saw farm reforms as well. Everyone, including the farmers, admit, and we've been covering this story for a very long time, that laws do need change. But a massive protest broke out on the manner in which these laws were implemented. So in this special show, we will talk about reforms and economy, not just for the agriculture sector, but the economy as a whole, and the vision for a better, prosperous India post the pandemic. I have industry's titans with me on India's economic growth. It is my great pleasure to introduce President of FICCI and Chairman of Star and Disney India, Mr. Uday Shankar. Thank you, Udayji, for joining us right here on NDTV. Though for the news TV industry, I must tell you, you will always be known as the newsroom junkie. That is going to be how you will be defined, at least in the news TV industry. Thank you so much for joining us. The outgoing president of FICCI, joint MD of Apollo Hospitals, Dr. Sangeeta Reddy. Welcome, Dr. Sangeeta, for joining us. Mr. Shubhakant Panda, the MD of IMFA and the Vice President of FICCI, is also with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Panda. And T.R. Kesavan, Group President, Corporate Relations and Alliances of the Tractors and Farm Equipments Limited, TAFE, and also associated as the Chairman of FICCI National Agricultural Committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Kesavan, for joining us. I welcome you all on this very important discussion. Mr. Uday Shankar, let me begin with you. Let's first talk about your understanding of where exactly is our economy going. Now we are in a post-pandemic, not exactly a post-pandemic, but in a situation where most likely and very soon we'll have a vaccine. In a situation like this, what are your expectations from India's economy?
A couple of things, Sanket. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for those nice words. It's always good to be reminded of my association with news. That remains privileged and special. Coming to your question, I think we have light at the end of the tunnel, but we are still not out of the pandemic. We need to be mindful of that. We are still very much in the middle of it, and the next few months are going to be critical. The good news is that we have a vaccine, and the government is working overtime with all the critical stakeholders to make sure that the vaccines is rapidly made available to everyone who needs it. But in the meanwhile, the economy that was very badly hit during the lockdown and the first phase of the pandemic is recovering, and all the indications that we are seeing, the recovery is really strong. There is good bounce back on the demand side. There is good stimulus from the government. Government has taken a bunch of great initiatives that I think are helping already and will be very helpful in the long run. But there are still sectors that require hand-holding, support, stimulus, and catalysis. And that process is going to go on for a while, because as you were saying, when we entered the pandemic, we still had some challenges that we were dealing with, and those challenges have been multiplied very seriously. The good news is that the government has taken a series of steps, starting with this 20 lakh crore of stimulus package, but also a whole series of reforms that normally would not have taken place, perhaps with the speed and with the commitment that they have been. I think the need is to continue doing this and also start specifically targeting critical sectors of the economy, whether it is the services sector, whether it is travel and tourism, whether it is healthcare, etc., etc. So that is what we expect, that government would approach the economic revival process at two levels. One, it would at the macroeconomic reforms at the Uber level, and on the ground specific targeted reforms to boost both growth as well as demand.
Okay. Dr. Reddy, I think one of the important points that Mr. Shankar mentioned was healthcare. Do you think that this pandemic has, in a way, also taught us to take care of these two crucial sectors that are often ignored, at least in the Indian context, were seen as ignored? Healthcare and education. Do you think that these two sectors and concentrating on them will be the great boosters for the economy going forward?
So I think there's no doubt that India's healthcare response to the pandemic has been incredibly good and is being hailed across the world. The fact is that not only are our death rates much lower, the fact that we were able to reach out to people and really give care and cure across the spectrum is credible. The fantastic thing is also that on the base of the tremendous manufacturing capability that we have been able to not just work on the discovery of the vaccine, but are also really slated to be supplying vaccines to the whole world. And like Uday most rightly said, the plan is now on a credible rollout strategy. Healthcare workers, the most vulnerable, the elderly, how do we do this efficiently? Do we have adequate vials? Is the cold chain in place? How do you do the selection, the IT system to create this? So I think that, we're on a good track on that one. But the greater point that you asked is something I'm very happy that you did ask about. And that is the fact that at no time ever in the world has healthcare been so center stage in the discussion. And this is very important from the health of the people, but also the health of the economy. Healthcare is one of the world's largest employers. Countries who get it right have multiple benefits across employment generation as well as a positive health index. So I think adequate budgeting, greater focus, more training, enhancement of the pharmaceutical sector, and what was rightly put, I think the PLI scheme had a specialized section for healthcare devices, so it's very much a part of Atmanirbhar. I believe that from a government and policy perspective, as well as from a public awareness and society perspective, we're going to see a stronger healthcare and education system.
But Dr. Reddy, what percentage share of the GDP should ideally in a country like India go to healthcare? See, in different countries of the world, that percentage is different. Our percentage was very low as compared to the international average. Where do you see this in an Atmanirbhar India?
Great question, Suketu. I think that, we have been continuously asking, saying it should go up to at least 2 to 2.5%. And all of us know that the out-of-pocket expenditure brings this to an actual number about 5%. You are right that other countries spend upward of 10%. US goes all the way up to 16% of their GDP. But I think India, if we continue to allocate 0.5% extra per year for the next 5 years, stay on the track of universal health coverage, and couple that with the fact that India is able to deliver advanced healthcare at 1/10 of global prices.
Okay.
So we will be able to reach our people far more cost effectively.
Okay.
And then you juxtaposition that with primary healthcare, which will reduce the burden of disease. And I do hope that India will really teach the world some lessons in healthcare.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, Mr. Panda, I want to bring you in now. You see, the purpose of the 20 lakh crore package was to boost the manufacturing sector. Now, this is one sector where India does not have much home to write home. We are not in a very good shape as far as the manufacturing sector is concerned, and the pandemic has dealt a body blow to this sector as well. What do you think are the challenges that this sector is facing, and what do you propose as the quick 3 or 4 or 5 bullet points to boost this in a post-pandemic scenario?
Good evening. You're absolutely right that it is not just in this government or in the last 1 or 2 years, but manufacturing has sort of stubbornly stayed at the 14 to 16% range of share of GDP for maybe 15 to 20 years now. And despite a lot of articulation of desire to expand the share of manufacturing in the GDP, that has not yet borne fruit. But I think in this government, what has been different is the desire to use this opportunity which has come about by way of the pandemic, and to turn adversity into opportunity. And I think one of the best moves in this regard has been the PLI scheme, which earlier was limited to one sector, and that is the electronics manufacturing, which has led to good investments, etc. But going ahead, the fact that manufacturing has been the PLI scheme has been expanded to 10 sectors. And in fact, in an interaction during the FICCI annual convention the other day, Mr. Amitabh Kant put across this statistic, which is very, I think, interesting, which is that the expanded PLI scheme has a outlay of about $26 billion for by way of incentives. And that over a 5-year period is expected to translate to $500 billion in terms of revenues. And clearly those sorts of investments and revenues are bound to lead to job growth as well, which is the need of the hour. In terms of what else the government can do, there is, of course, already the announcement of the national infrastructure pipeline. At FICCI, we believe that execution is the key, of course, and if this can be sort of front-loaded to the first couple of years, that will go a long way towards boosting demand and providing a much necessary impetus to demand, which can then sort of start off the virtuous cycle in terms of growth, GDP, and general expansion.
Okay. Mr. Kesavan, I want to come to you now. You are the chairman of the FICCI National Agriculture Committee. I'm not going to keep this discussion myopic and just refer to the problem around the reform. Mr. Shankar spoke about reforms and getting in reforms fast. But the larger point over here is, what are the key issues in the farm sector that needed to be addressed?
Thank you for that very specific question. See, if you really look at it, Indian farm sector has been completely smallholder holdings. Very, very small people, very small farmers, but almost 9 to 10 crores of people who are farming. So this also means that there has to be some kind of support needed to them. Unfortunately, if you really look at the last 30, 40 years, we had put strong holds on these farmers so that they are not able to access the market. They were not able to grow what they want and sell where they want. There is always a feeling that we have to support the farmer, otherwise they will not be able to prosper. Which, if you really look back, it is not a fact, because all said and done, with this kind of smallholder farmers, India is still growing 300 million tons of grain and in equal or higher amount of fruits and vegetables. What I think we have been lacking and what are the support needed here was, unfortunately, we never had a consistent and standardized agri framework across the country. I think this has been one of the biggest problems we have been facing. Second is, if we have to attract capital and technology, you also need a minimum amount of volume. Why I'm talking about capital and technology in agriculture is there is a lot of wastage that is happening in agriculture, which doesn't help the farmer, which doesn't help the country. Just take an example. In a case of grains, I think you're talking about 20 to 25% wastage. In the case of fruits and vegetables, we are talking about a 40% wastage. At one end, we always complain that we are not able to export, we are not able to produce at the low cost. At the same time, somebody has to pay for the wastages. I think the most important aspect here is conversion, processing, and this has been very, very badly needed. And I think this changes what has been happening with the new laws, including the market interventions for both the agricultural buyers and sellers. I think these are direly needed. I think it has been a good move to create these laws and a good move to ensure that across India we will have
Mr. Kesavan,
an agriculture which will be able to grow and also meet with the global volumes, global costs.
So
and
Mr.
we will
Kesavan,
be
I would like to tell you,
care.
I'm sure you also must be in conversation with a lot of representatives from the agricultural community. But, of all the farmers that we spoke to, not one said that we do not need reforms. Not one farmer said that we are against or anti-reform. Their problem is the manner in which the reform comes. I want to ask you, what is your assessment? Do you think that while we try to get in reforms, get in the much needed speed for reforms, we often tend to treat negotiation and consensus to be the casualty, and that should not happen?
I agree with you on this, but I still slightly like to differ from you, because if you really look at the current issue, it is much more pocketed into a set of farmers, whereas major set of the other Indian farmers are not really opposing it. What is the reason for it? I think let's understand. See, in the past, in the last 30 years, you have created a system which catered to what the farmer grows. I will buy everything from you, and then I will ensure that the payment comes to you. This actually helped only 1 or 2 states. So when this gets removed, they are worried. Well, let's put it that way. They are worried because they think, hey, I've been enjoying this. And what happens if does not happen for tomorrow? Am I going to be in trouble? So this is one set. Whereas you look at the balance, all the farmers in the country, which you are right, that many of them say that it's very good to have this because they were not in this position.
No, Mr. Kesavan,
They
my
were not
question was on
enjoying this.
building
So they were
consensus.
already working in the markets.
So, Sanket,
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Mr. Shankar wanted to come in. Yeah.
if I
Just the
just wanted
point
to
on
comment-
building consensus, nothing else.
Yeah. Look, first and foremost, no one can argue against the need to build consensus. You can build consensus. You must build consensus on everything. But there is also a reality that how long can you just keep building consensus? Farm sector is the least reformed sector in this country. And we keep talking about, there is every conversation with every economist, business community, political community, that there is a need to reform. And the reforms haven't taken place primarily because everybody wants to build consensus. And let's just speak the blunt truth. What is consensus? We are only talking about, let's not offend anybody. If that is the definition of consensus building, then you will never have a consensus. And that is why there will never be any change here. Some people are affected, but what a lot of people are also concerned about, innocent people I'm talking about, is that they have to behave in a different way. They have to do their business in a different way. Change always brings in some apprehension. I think those apprehensions we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it in media. All stakeholders need to talk about it.
Correct.
But you have to move on. The country needs these changes.
No, Mr. Shankar, my only point was, see, if you notice that the government started a dialogue process after the process began, and this credit must go to the government. They have accommodated or tried to accommodate a lot of those changes also by way of amendments, right? What is happening in the negotiations is not our brief. We are not going to delve too much into detail about that. The point is, why could this consultation not happen earlier? What government was willing to give now, why could it not have given earlier? Perhaps a trust deficit would not have existed.
Look, there are many ways to describe that. First of all, we are not in the right position to say why it could not happen earlier, but somewhere you have to start. Let's not forget that these reforms are happening in the shadows of one of the biggest disruptions that, post-independent we have faced in this country. That is the COVID disruption. We are looking at all these reforms and changes as part of a comprehensive package to bring the country's economy and growth back on rails. So, you could always, looking back, you can always say that something could have been done better.
Sure.
But okay, even if that process was not started when you say it should have been started, the process has started now. Let's talk about those issues and address wherever genuine grievances exist.
I agree. Mr. Shankar, let's move on now. We've discussed the farming sector. I want to talk to you about, the overall picture. Most of the agencies say that there will be a temporary growth that one will see in the economy. But what about the long-term plan? I mean, what is your assessment about India's growth in terms of GDP? Those key indices.
All the indicators that we are seeing are encouraging, and we think the growth will be good. The question is not whether we will have good growth or not. The question is how good the growth will be, and can we do it better? And I think there is a lot of room for that, and all stakeholders again need to work towards that. Again, the government has to do a lot of things, and we are engaging with the government. The great news is that we have seen that the government is more open now than any government or most governments have been in the past, because the government realizes that there is a pressing need to accelerate growth, because that's the only way the larger social challenges can be addressed and mitigated. So the question is not about whether we will have growth or not. I think, I'm not an economist, but every indicator that we see at FICCI and in my individual capacity as a business executive, I think that growth will be good. The real issue is that growth can be much better provided we reform actively and provided we fix areas and unlock other new areas of economy. Technology is the biggest force that's driving growth globally. And we have benefited from it. Sectors like IT and IT-enabled services, media, telecom, etc. They have all benefited and created huge value for the country. And the next phase of wave of technology is ready to add value to everything, from manufacturing to services to everything. And are we going to create a framework, consistent, homogeneous policy framework that allows us to take advantage of those factors of change and growth?
Okay. Dr. Reddy, my final question to you. Yeah, my final question to you, and this is one which is very close to our hearts. The human index, the human indices, right? Now, the UNDP report, which has been published today, we've read it in the newspapers also, it shows that on human index, India has slipped by a position. Though Bangladesh has improved, it is doing better. Do you think that this is also a key parameter that the government must keep right at the center when it is planning and thinking about a better economy?
So, Sanket, there's no question about that, but I just want to add one more point to add to what Uday so appropriately said, is the framework for reforms and the methodology to move forward. And in that is the ability to execute at speed and scale. And the Human Development Index is also related to the economic growth. I think the government is very clearly focusing on the right things in terms of the Human Development Index. Healthcare is clearly a big focus, and universal health coverage on the scale at which we have currently looked at it. The Indian government, through the Ayushman Bharat, has never been attempted by anyone anywhere in the world. So we must collectively enable execution for the collective good of the country. That is, I think, the key point, and then we will see these indices improving.
All right. All right. I've run out of time, but thank you so much for your time and explaining in great detail your understanding. All I can say, and I'm sure you also agree, things do look good. I mean, certainly 2021 will be much, much better than what we have seen in the year that is going by. Thank you very much, Mr. Uday Shankar, Dr. Reddy, Mr. Panda, as well as Mr. Kesavan for joining us on this broadcast.